Hi, welcome to our math. Today I'm doing a series of videos on inequalities. You'll see on these two problems, they are set up with the inequality in three parts. When you're solving an inequality in three parts, you can there's two ways of doing it. One way you can do it is you can split it apart. You can say negative 17 is less than or equal to 4x minus 11, or 4x minus 11 is less than 10. Then you can solve it instead of like one big bang in two separate parts. So for this, I would add 11, and I'm going to do the notation where I bring my inequality down so I don't lose it. Negative 6 is less than 4x, divide by 4. And when I divide by 4, I'm going to make sure I reduce my fraction. Negative 3/2 is less than or equal to x. I'm going to do the same process over here. I'm going to add 11 to both sides. 4x is less than 21, divide by 4. X is less than 21/4. All right. Next, it says graph answers. Even if graph answers was at the end, I would probably graph before doing interval notation. I just find it's a lot easier to follow when I graph first. I'm going to put down a number line with negative infinity and positive infinity. I'm only going to put these two numbers on my number line. I don't need all the rest of the tick marks. I don't need 0. I'm just going to put negative 3/2 and 21/4. Now, for interval notation and for my graph, probably traditionally you've seen a solid circle and an open circle. I don't tend to do that. For parentheses, the less than and greater than, I use parentheses. For the less than or equal and greater than or equal, I use brackets. I do that because that lends itself directly for the interval notation. So if x is greater than or equal to negative 3/2, I am going to do a bracket indicating the direction of greater than or equal. If x is less than 21/4, I'm going to do parentheses in the direction of less than 21/4. The bracket is great because it's like my x is reaching and touching a wall. And because it can equal that negative 3/2 and touch it, that's what the wall means. The parenthesis is great because x is reaching for 21/4 and scooping and scooping and scooping, but not actually reaching, not achieving that number. It is also going to then let me get my interval notation, which is exactly the same. Bracket, negative 3/2, comma, 21/4. This one doesn't look as much like an ordered pair as this one will, but be very careful to know if you're being asked about interval notation or an ordered pair when you see a problem. Okay, so this is fine. Breaking it up. Make sure you decide when you see these problems with three parts if you want to be doing it as two separate problems or kind of a big bang. And I'm going to show you how to do the big bang on the next problem. I'm also going to show you how to do the big bang. I'll do both ways, but this problem I'm going to do a few ways. The first way I'm going to do it is the way a lot of my students like to do it, which is brute force. My first step is I'm just going to subtract that 3. So I'm going to bring this over here. 2/3 is less than negative 5x plus 3 is less than 8. So I have a lot of students who are like, I am just going to subtract 3. And they're going to do it. So when you're doing this in one fell swoop, you're not balancing two parts, you're balancing 3. And so whatever you do to one part, you have to do to all 3 parts. Notice I'm bringing my inequality signs down and I still have 3 parts, and you have to keep everything balanced. So 2/3 minus 3 is going to be negative 7/3. Negative 5x 5. Okay, so that's going to be my first step. Next, I'm going to divide everything by 5. Now, I don't mind dividing this by -5. This will flip over because when you divide an inequality by a negative, you flip your sign. -5. And I'm going to flip all 3 parts. For my fraction, I'm actually going to multiply by -1 over -5 because I find multiplying a fraction by a fraction is much simpler than dividing a fraction within a fraction, which somehow always goes terribly wrong. So a negative times a negative is a positive. This is going to become 7/15. This flips, this becomes x, this flips, this becomes -1. You can leave it like that. You could rewrite it so everything is pointing to the left. It's easier to read if everything is pointing to the x. X left. Either way, it's the same answer. Okay, so that's one way you can do it. The other way that if you're going to do it kind of in this big bang kind of way, I would suggest doing it, is multiply everything by 3. So multiply this first term by 3, the middle term by 3, and the last term by 3. You will end up with 2 is less than -15x plus 9 is less than 24. The nice thing about that is then when you do your math now, it's a lot easier to, I don't know, do mental math if that's your thing. And you can kind of see how we're going to end up with the same answer. And to me, clearing your fraction is just a much simpler, faster process. And if I divide by -15, you'll see how I'll get right back here. The last thing is you could also take 2/3 is less than -5x plus 3, and -5x plus 3 is greater than 8. You could separate it into 2. If you do this and multiply this by 3, you have 2 is less than -15x plus 9, subtract the 9. -7 is less than -15x, divide by -15. 7 over 15 is greater than x minus 3, -15, sorry, -5x is less than 5, divide by -5, flip this over, x is greater than 1. So you can see we're getting all of the same answers every single time. We are repeating these steps, but we're always getting these same answers. X is less than 7/15, x is greater than 1. We can separate them, we can get rid of our fraction, we can just brute force it. You have options. So if I graph this, -infinity, +infinity, -1, 7/15. This is a parenthesis, this is a parenthesis, shade in between. I end up with -1 to 7/15 as my final answer. All right, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.